Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Catholic Education Foundation podcast number 19. Another amazing guest in studio. We have Mr. Dave Calzi joining us today. Dave is the retired managing partner of EY Louisville and the current executive director and CEO of St. Vincent de Paul Louisville. He's also served as the foundation board of directors for 6 years, the last 2 of which as its chair. And as always, Mr. Rich Lechleiter. Rich is the president of the Catholic Education Foundation of Louisville, now in his 10th year. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Rich, let's start with you. You guys share a lot in common with respect to your so-called first careers, right? And what I'll call your second acts now that you guys are both in. Tell us a little bit how your paths crossed and what that has led to.
Yeah, thanks, Teague. Thanks for having us on today. Dave and I met several years ago. I was a CFO at Kindred. Dave was managing the office here at EY Louisville, and they came to visit us to do some work for us, some consulting work, and we kind of hit it off right off the bat, and it was a pretty large project, actually. And that was probably 2010 or something like that. It was a while back. And so we became very good friends, and we are today. And from that, I was already on the board of the foundation, and I got Dave to join. I coerced him into joining the board.
Mm-hmm. Rich shouldn't take no for an answer, does he, Dave?
Coerced me in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, when I retired from Kindred in 2014, I had been talking to the foundation about the role I'm in today. And Dave was very much a part of that discussion of kind of bringing me into the foundation, encouraging me to do that. And I owe a big debt to Dave personally for kind of pushing that agenda for me. And lo and behold, 10 years later, I'm still at the foundation trying to do some good works. And I'll let Dave tell his story. But we both had a great run in our financial careers.
Right.
Public accounting for Dave and,
Sure.
and corporate finance for me. But we were lucky enough, very lucky, in fact, to get at a point at which we could do something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're both God blessed to do
Yeah.
it, for sure.
Amen. Dave, let's hear about your story. You started out in Buffalo, New York, and ended up here in Louisville. Tell us a little about your family and your journey, please.
Yeah, I'd love to. Native of Buffalo, New York. Came to Kentucky, kind of a fish out of water. I went to UK and ran on the track and cross country team.
Okay.
Back in 1979.
Okay.
Yeah, and had opportunity to go back to Buffalo, but decided to stay in Kentucky, and started off my career in public accounting. My wife was at the same firm. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but met her there. And I've been in Louisville for over 40 years, 37 of those years in public accounting, initially with Arthur Anderson and then with Ernst & Young.
Okay, sure.
Married 35 years, 2 daughters, 2 grandchildren. This is home.
Now, are you a member of a parish here in town?
I am, Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Now, did your kids go through the Catholic school system?
They did. So I like to tell folks when they ask me where I went to high school, I tell them Sacred Heart.
Amen.
Right? Yeah. I put
Right,
2 girls
sure.
through Sacred Heart, right?
Mhm.
No, they went all the way through Holy Trinity and then on to Sacred Heart.
That's awesome. So both of you guys have obviously had very successful careers in accounting and in finance over many years. How did that help point you to your second act? Dave, let's start with you.
You know, it's interesting. There's been a lot of boards that I've been on, obviously the time that I spent with the Catholic Education Foundation, but other boards as well. And when you're on boards and you're a finance guy or if you're a CPA, they always want you on the finance or audit committee.
Right, sure.
Right? I mean,
or fundraising, right?
You need to be on that. I always wanted to be on the program side of things. And so I've focused my time outside of my day work in terms of board membership, of course, on the finance and audit side, but really trying to focus more on those entities that provide and those organizations that provide access to education.
Sure.
So Junior Achievement was one, the Muhammad Ali Center, which provided a lot of access into education. But most importantly, the Catholic Education Foundation. It's one of those things where, I was able to see what my education did for me. My dad was superintendent of schools back in Buffalo as well, so it was never a choice. You're going to get your education, you're going to go on, you're going to do these things. But I tried to use that and also my background in finance and accounting and the expertise there to help folks see what it could be possible for them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So really important to me.
I have a fun junior achievement story I'll tell you when we get off air, but I was the president of junior achievement at St. X. And we set some records. We actually shut junior achievement down for a couple of years with the amount of things we sold at St. X. Rich, same question to you.
Yeah, listen, I'm like Dave. I did a lot of board work around Louisville while I was at Kindred for 19 years, 12 of which as CFO, and I got a chance to serve mostly on Catholic organization boards and that kind of thing. And I kind of fell into the Catholic Education Foundation through Phil McHugh, who was a fantastic leader of this organization. And he called me, I think, in January of 2010. I was already on the board, and he said, "Hey, I'm shipping out to Cincinnati. You want to be the board chair?" And
right.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Right.
And I embraced that. I was a board chair for a couple of years and really got into kind of a leadership role on the board, sort of, particularly around our fundraising events and making sure they were successful. And I kind of felt like, at least as an accountant, I was a decent fundraiser. You know, I didn't unlike it, if you will.
Okay.
I mean, it was okay.
Okay.
And the more and more I got into it, the more and more I kind of liked it, because you met a ton of people in this community, either Catholic or not. It really didn't matter. Business people, individuals who actually embrace what Dave's talking about in the context of what are we going to do to educate our young children? How are we going to do it better?
Yeah.
And I've been riding that train ever since. Look, I'm a Catholic school kid through and through. I'm one of 9 kids. We all went to St. Stephen Martyr and St. X and Sacred Heart and the like. And for me personally, it's the best gift my parents ever gave me, ever. And I want that same opportunity for a kid who can't otherwise afford what I was given. And that's my passion. That's my motivation. That's why I'm here.
You know, Rich, I'll echo that. I don't know that I'd ever was aware enough to think that until I heard you say that was the best gift my parents ever gave me. And I'm in the same boat. But it really, once you look back on it and you see all the things Catholic education has done for you, it absolutely was the same for me, for sure.
Well, Teague, can I add to that?
Please.
As well, because, you'd asked earlier about kind of when Rich and I met, and, Rich was really important to me at that time in my career as well, and then introduced me into the Catholic Education Foundation. But when I was board chair is when Rich was hired by the foundation. And I remember it vividly to this day, because it was an organization that had done so much up to that point in time. But just like any other organization, when there's change and you're going to move to a different direction, it's a different direction.
Oh, yeah,
and when Rich came on board, he talks about the fundraising and all that. I told the board, fasten your seatbelts.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going places with this, right? Don't know exactly where it's going to go,
right?
But we know, but we know we're going places with this thing, and we'll have the resources to do what we need to do. But essentially, it was an appreciation for what the Catholic school system means to this community and has meant to this community for almost 2 centuries, and the importance of having that here, and the importance of making sure that it is sustainable and continues for another 150 years.
Well, and it's been a fun ride kind of telling that story, too. Talking about a fantastic organization, Dave, tell us about your new journey here with St. Vincent de Paul, and maybe describe some of the life-changing work that this organization is doing right here in Louisville.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride over the last 18 months. St. Vincent de Paul Louisville is celebrating 170 years in Louisville.
170. That's
170 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was Bishop Spalding on a trip into Europe that came across the folks in Paris that had started St. Vincent de Paul Society, and actually he was on a trip there to find teachers for this fledgling school system, this Catholic school system, and came back with that, but also came back with the idea of how can we serve the poor in our community, and that was the Society of St. Vincent de Paul back in 1853.
It's incredible.
The first parish to adopt a conference, which is at the parish level, was at the cathedral.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was the very first one. But, it has morphed from a parish level organization into what we now have down in Shelby Park, our campus. We're housing about 300 folks every night in Shelby Park.
Wow.
Feeding, our open hand kitchen feeds about 10,000 a month, lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Pantry serving 500 families. off-site and scattered housing, about another 150 folks. It's a very comprehensive business that most people in Louisville, they know St. Vincent de Paul. They know that we serve those that are in need, but they really don't have a clue the extent to what we do here in Louisville. It's amazing. It really is. It's a very complex business. Rich was saying, at Kindred, you see public companies like that, very complex, very difficult to manage and to run. This is different. It's not billions of dollars, right? It's millions of dollars. It's 100 people, not thousands of people. But the reality of what we're doing every day and the decisions that we make literally help people. It's whether or not they live or not. I mean, the folks that are referred to us are those that are most likely to not survive on the street.
You mentioned families. Are you dealing with actually full families?
We are.
Kids?
Yeah, kids. There's kids on campus. We have an after-school program with about 40 kids in it. They're from our campus and from the surrounding Smoketown and Shelby Park neighborhood as well. So, yeah, we have individuals. We've got individuals fleeing domestic abuse. Sometimes that comes with children as well. But the apartments on campus do have families.
It's a little off script here, but why do you think we have such a need here in this area?
Well, it's a lack of housing. Again, I'm a numbers guy. And when you look at all the research in communities where you see folks that aren't housed, there's a real myth that, they don't want to be housed or they want to, live.
Right.
They
Sure.
don't want to live.
Sure. It's
they
their
wanna
own
live on the
doing.
streets, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a myth. And the reality is when you find yourself in a community where vacancies are low and rents are going up, which is what we have in Louisville, vacancies are low, our rents, if you rented an apartment recently, the rents are way up.
Yep.
And it's a lack of affordable housing.
God. It's scary. It's scary, but thank
is.
God for what you guys do. Thank God for
Yeah.
St. Vincent de Paul.
Right.
I mean, there'd be a lot of people in dire need without what you guys do on an everyday, 365, 24 hours a day basis.
We're saving lives every day.
So let's talk a little bit about that transition. So we're talking about this nonprofit that you're now in running, coming from a Big Four accounting firm. Has it been what you expected?
I didn't know what to expect. That it's actually Rich's fault. I'm there.
It is, actually.
Okay.
we can
Okay.
go offline on that one.
All right.
Actually, I blame Rich for this. But no, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. And I'll be the first to admit that I didn't know myself the full extent to what we did and how comprehensive it was.
Until you got involved.
Until I got involved. It's almost like I had to take the job to figure that
Yep.
out. Right. I will tell you that, again, 37 years in public accounting, again, it was important work, no doubt. It was difficult at times, no doubt, but nothing like what I've experienced in the last 18 months. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life.
I understand that. Sure.
I mean, not only just because of who we're serving, but also just the whole notion of making the ends meet and getting the community to understand the importance of supporting what we're doing.
Sure. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
No, it's a struggle.
It is a struggle.
Whether you're at the foundation trying to help these folks in Catholic schools, whether you're trying to help folks at St. Vincent de Paul, it's a struggle because you kind of start from zero every day. And you just got to keep generating resources, creating resources to continue the mission. And just a little side story: when this job opened up at St. Vincent de Paul, Jim Smith called me, who was on the board at the time. He says, "Hey, let's have lunch." I'm thinking, "Oh gosh, he's going to offer me this job." So we ate lunch, and he says to me, "Gosh, we got this opening." He talked about the organization. He said, "Who would you know that you think would be really good at this?" Instantly, Dave Calzi came right out of my mouth,
right.
And the rest is history. Because I called Dave. I said, "Look, you're going to call from Jim Smith. I think this is a cool organization. I think it's a great opportunity." I knew Dave was looking for something like this,
right,
in terms of community-based services.
Sure.
And I'm thrilled that he took the job. I love him being there, and he is making a big difference down at that place.
So you're right, Dave. Rich it is his fault, isn't it?
Literally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we just outlined the need, right? So we know that there's a great need here in the city of Louisville for the St. Vincent de Paul. Tell us about the fundraising activities and the other grant programs that help make your work possible.
Yeah, so if you look at what we do with the housing aspect, there's about 40% of what we do that's that is funded through government grants. So
Yep.
HUD, we have a VA program.
Okay.
And Metro Louisville has been a supporter of us, mainly in our emergency men's shelter.
Got it.
That we have. We have a few thrift stores,
Mm-hmm.
and those do support the operations, but for the most part, those are more friend makers
Okay. Got
than
it.
anything else.
Yep. Sure.
And then the rest, of the total $8 million budget that we have is coming from most of it from individuals,
Right.
also from corporations and foundations, corporate foundations, private foundations, it's like it's interesting because it's one of those things where, in any business, there's always a structural gap.
Yep.
You don't know where everything's going to come from,
Sure.
right? And so what I've been trying to do is build the awareness
Sure.
of what we do.
Sure.
I was telling you before, we went on air here that I've probably done at least 70 tours.
Mm-hmm.
And for all 70 of those tours, the individuals that went through that tour knew about St. Vincent de Paul, knew the brand. It's a worldwide brand,
Right.
but they didn't know what we did.
Yep.
Exactly.
Sure.
They
Exactly.
didn't- they
Or the
didn't have a
need.
clue. Or the need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you see it, you understand it. And that's one of the beautiful things about these two organizations, I think. The mission's very clear. Ours is to house, feed, and support those in need with compassion and dignity. From the Catholic education's perspective, it's about being able to provide that education, for that Catholic education. And the answer, I know that the tagline always is the answer is
yes.
is
Sure.
yes, right? Because we will be there
Sure.
for your child. It's very clear what we both do.
So I'm gonna jump ahead here a little bit. Dave, how are you planning to grow the impact of St. Vincent de Paul?
It's a good question. Right now, the focus is on increasing the amount of emergency shelter that we have. Again, a lot of folks talk about affordable housing, and if anyone says, "Well, we just need more affordable housing," ask them what they mean by that.
Right.
Right? Is it people at 30% median income, which is $25,000 a year for a family of four?
Right.
Right? Or 80% median, 50% median. It's all of that.
Yeah.
Right? But in the meantime, though, we're always going to have the need for that transitional housing for the person coming off the street that isn't quite yet ready
Yeah.
to go into that more permanent solution.
Sure.
So, our mission isn't going to change, meaning we house, we feed, we support.
Okay.
That's our why.
Right.
That'll never change.
Right.
How we do it and what we do
Yeah.
over time may change.
You might have to get more creative.
Yeah, and so I think right now, in terms of what our city needs, there's a right to shelter, and people have a right to shelter. There's not enough. I think we can play in that in that space, but it's it's one of those things where I've learned that you have to be very deliberate and intentional about any kind of growth.
Sure.
Because if you do it without having a sustainable source of operating funds,
Right.
you can actually hurt people.
Yeah. Sure.
Because programming may not continue past a year or two.
Yeah.
And so in the conversation, it always has to be about not just the actual housing itself, but how are we do we have the operating funds to do it safely and to do it effectively?
In the foreseeable future, we run into that at the Catholic Education Foundation all the time. You may be able to help me for this particular grade, but are you going to be here through our entire journey?
Right.
Yeah, if you go back in our history, we had years where we were doing good works, but we would come up short with funding. That was our reality. And some families that came to us who needed help, we couldn't help.
Right.
So that's and Dave's right. You got to bolster the organization to be able to say to somebody, okay, if you come knocking on our door and you qualify, you get an award.
You get it.
And that was the hard work that had to be done when I started. And through Dave's leadership and others, we really started to rev up the fundraising to a point at which we're in our 9th year of this exercise. So if you look backwards, you think, gosh, the kid that we supported in kindergarten is now going into the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've been with them every year of
Every
the
year.
journey. Nobody fell through the cracks. That's pretty exciting. When
Yeah,
you
that's
think
awesome.
about the trajectory of that family going forward.
Well, listen, that's why we work so hard to raise the money we're raising, right?
Yep.
The answer has to be yes. We have to keep these kids in these schools.
Exactly.
There's no other option.
Teague, you know what's important about that? Because here's one of the things that Rich has done so well. I'm getting more used to ambiguity than I've ever been able to do in my career. Was always about it's everything's kind of structured
Yeah.
from an audit standpoint.
Yeah.
you got to, in this space, in the space that Rich is in and the one that I'm in now, you got to be okay with ambiguity.
Sure.
Right? And that's not an easy place to be sometimes.
No.
But the spirit of what Rich did it with when he came on board at the Catholic Education Foundation was to come from a place of abundance.
Uh-huh.
That this is what the community wants.
Right.
The community wants these schools to
Right.
thrive and be open and provide
Sure.
an education.
Yeah.
I'm there, and the community wants those that are unhoused or those that are not being fed
Right.
to be housed and to be fed and
Right.
get on their feet. If you come from a place of abundance as opposed to a place of scarcity,
Right.
it will be there.
Yeah.
It may be a little ambiguous at times and a little scary at times,
Oh my goodness.
but you've got to come from a place of abundance and not scarcity. And oftentimes, not-for-profits suffer from that notion of it's always coming from a place of scarcity. So we can't afford to do that, or we can't afford to do that, as opposed to saying, we need to do that, and how are we going to figure it out?
Yeah, and really when Dave, and he was on the board as our chair for my first 2 years, and we were really trying to ramp this up quickly. I mean, the issue was, do we have enough funds to get this thing launched?
Right.
And it was tight.
Right.
I mean, it was money in, money out. And the first 2 years, quite honestly, we scrambled
Sure.
to be able to keep our kids where they needed to be. It was very difficult, and there was a lot of financial risk to it. I mean, if you say the answer is yes to somebody, and they want to take that gamble with you, and 2 years later the answer is not yes,
Right. That's a bad look.
that's a huge problem.
So, I mean, Rich just brought it up, Dave. I mean, obviously you've been on the board here on the Catholic Education Foundation during some really exciting times. Describe that. I mean, it's been really cool what we've been able to do over the last several years.
Well, it was a big shift for the organization, right? And it was a shift where, you needed to get a lot of folks on that bus going in that direction. And that included a lot of folks here in the community.
Yeah.
And Rich was able to lay out, the reasons why.
Sure.
A very clear notion of what the value was from that, and also a very specific strategy.
Yep.
Around, so you mentioned what parish I'm from, Holy Trinity. We're very blessed at Holy Trinity.
Yep.
Right. You think, and you can name a lot of parishes, very blessed.
Agreed.
But there were other parishes in parts of Jefferson County that needed help.
Sure.
And so the focus was, let's focus on where the help is needed.
Yeah.
And focus those dollars on where the help is needed. And it was a very clear, why are we doing this? We don't want those schools to close, because if they close, those families won't have what they need.
Yep.
In that part of ever. And it'll be lost forever.
Makes sense.
Right? And so it was a very specific strategy. And it was a very exciting strategy because it made sense to be able to go out and get folks to support that.
Yeah, we started out in Okolona. We started out near Coy Park in the south end, out Dixie Highway. The 4 schools out in the Dixie corridor, all the way to PRP. And we kind of got them together as a group and said, folks, let's figure out how to grow this enterprise. Everybody needs to grow. There's probably not enough families in your particular communities that can pay the full Monty. But let's figure out how to get a message out to them that says, you're welcome at St. Paul's School on Dixie Highway. You're welcome. The answer is yes. Invite them to come in.
Yeah.
We didn't know what that was going to be. We had no idea what the reaction to it was going to be, how many kids it was going to be. There's a very big financial risk. But if we didn't do that, to Dave's point, the flip side is that community starts to decline more and more and more. And I'm thrilled to report today that every one of those school communities that we targeted has higher enrollments today than they did 9 years ago.
Thriving.
The St. Rita story.
Yeah, St. Rita was awesome.
Right?
Yeah,
You
were a part of that.
Looking into the Hispanic community
Yep.
and doing very innovative things that, just weren't being done.
Yeah.
And the difference that's made in people's lives is immeasurable.
Yeah, Dave was on that journey with us. That was one of the first things we did is, I think, Rita in the Okolona neighborhood right there on Preston Highway, they were struggling in lots of ways. Their enrollment numbers were heading south. They had a brand new principal who's a rock star, by the way, and he's looking at
Neil's one of the best.
Neil Holsweet's the best, and he kind of invited us out there to talk about, gosh, what can we do? I think his enrollment was down to, 170 kids, which is sort of not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole group of that parish that were Hispanic that weren't really in the school. Now, there's a cultural reason behind that. Most of these families came from Mexico.
Right.
Culturally, if you're Catholic in Mexico and you're wealthy, you can go to a Catholic school. If you're not, you can't.
Sure.
That's just kind of where they came from culturally. So we had to kind of break that, and we went right to the masses, the Spanish Mass at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. The place is packed, looks like Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And we got up and started to spread that message to the community that, hey, you are welcome in the school across the parking lot.
Yeah.
And it took about 18 months to really catch fire.
Right.
And today there's 325 kids in the building, half of whom are not white.
Yep.
And they're doing very, very well out there.
They're doing fantastic.
Yeah.
It's exciting times at St. Rita for sure, as well as a lot of our Catholic parishes here in town.
Absolutely.
So, guys, it seems like there's more opportunities for successful businesses and professional folks like you guys to pursue their second act. Dave, what would you tell someone who's thinking about something like that, something kind of what you and Rich are doing now?
It comes down to, Teague, it comes down to understanding sense of purpose. You have a successful career, you're doing your thing, and you're blessed financially, but what's your real sense of purpose, which for most of us has been there for a very long time.
Right.
We may just not have seen it.
Right.
Right. And so for me, my sense of purpose was helping folks to see through the fog.
Yeah.
See what's possible and achieve it, right? And so what does that mean? Well, it means being involved with the Catholic Education Foundation. It means being involved with St. Vincent de Paul, with Evolve 502, Hand-in-Hand Ministries, all those different places, right? But it all comes back down to sense of purpose. So I would highly recommend that if somebody's getting close to that point where they maybe finished the first act,
Right.
do some work around your sense of purpose.
Okay.
Understand what it is that really drives you and what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Before you just stop, because once you stop, whatever you were doing, you're not identified as that anymore.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's tough on folks that have had a professional career for a long time kind of thing.
Right.
So try to do that work before you're done.
Okay.
And then kind of see what's out there and just
That's
get
pretty
involved.
cool. That's a great answer. Rich, how would you answer that one?
Yeah, I think Dave's right. I think professional people particularly have a certain identity during their career that they're comfortable with. Hey, I'm the CFO of Kindred. Hey, I'm the managing partner of BY Louisville. That's your business kind of community identity. And all of a sudden one day, it ain't there. It goes away very quickly. And, I think people, and I think whether you're professional or not, I think people have to have some relevance to the world around them, relevance to their family, relevance to their community. I mean, if you achieve some level of success, what are you going to turn that into?
Right.
What do you turn it into? How do you reinvest it, if you will?
Right.
And Dave and I have been super lucky to be able to do these jobs and be able to reinvest ourselves into something that is in fact changing people's lives for the better.
So I would imagine these jobs require a lot of skill, energy, determination. Dave, what's been the most challenging part or challenging issue that you've faced in your new role?
It's a good question. And it really, I don't want to be crass about this, but it really does come back to figuring out the sustainability part. I mean, we've been around for 170 years. We're going to be around for another 170
There's
years.
the needs there.
Right? It's there, right? I mean, I wish we could put ourselves out of business.
Yeah,
It's
understood.
not going to happen.
Sure.
Right? It's not going to happen. So for me, it's how do I make this sustainable? Because again, the why is not going to change. It'll never change because there's always going to be the need. But how do we remain relevant, remain on that front edge of really making a difference in the community, and how do we make that sustainable? I'll have to say it's a challenge. I mean, I've come from a place of a firm that's 300,000 people, and pretty much all the resources that you need.
Right.
You can just call somebody and come and
do
fix it. And it's not the world that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most challenging thing, is just trying to figure out how do we just make it sustainable.
Is that part exciting too?
It is. It creates a level of anxiety.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. As a
Got
as
to. There's a lot of pressure there.
There's a lot of pressure on that. And you feel that pressure, because you know what it means not to have this organization.
Oh yeah.
Kind of thing. So, but it is exciting, and I we're going to be embarking on some campaigns, to help communicate to what the need is, and I pray that it's successful.
That's awesome. Rich, give us a quick update on the Foundation's tuition assistance program for the upcoming fall school term.
Yeah, thanks, Teague. It's, this is a really exciting time for all of our Catholic schools, not just a few of them, because the level of interest for parents and families, particularly young families, is really skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Really, during COVID and certainly post-COVID, to say, okay, is this a pathway that's going to work for us? We never really thought about it. We really couldn't afford it, so it was kind of off the radar. But now people are saying, you know what? Catholic schools did a fantastic job during COVID. They really did.
Oh, yeah.
I'm super proud of them.
Yeah.
In a very difficult time. If you think about our teachers, our administrators, our staff at our schools, let me tell you what, they're the best.
Yep.
Look at what they did. So young families are saying, my oldest kid's 4 years old. I've got 2 in tow, and what's our pathway? Well, what you're seeing, and it's all parts of Louisville. It's not just in the East End, but it's all parts. They're saying, I'm going to go look at St. Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look at St. Andrew and PRP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look at St. Stephen Martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to see if there's something there, if there's a community there that we can fit into. Because fitting in is super important for a family, right? And the interest level, again, last year, our overall elementary enrollments grew almost 3% across the board. Almost every school grew. This fall, we don't know the numbers yet, but my sense is this fall it grows at an even faster rate. And if you look across the 39 elementary schools, many of them in pre-K, K, and first grade are either full, have waiting lists, or have actually added classes to their programs.
Right.
So that bubbling up, if you will, at the entry level, think about what that means for Catholic education for the next 10 to 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's enormous. Now, for us, what's that mean? That means probably another record number of kids that we've got to help. We helped 3,600 kids last year, an all-time high. We're not finished with our work and won't be done until probably early September, but my sense is the number of kids that we're going to help next fall will be yet another record. So we've got some work to do.
And we keep doing that work. Let's explain a little bit how successful our bourbon raffle was. I mean, we killed it. That's hats off to this community.
Yeah, listen, this was our second annual bourbon raffle. We had 96 bottles and 20 prize lots. It was really well done. Thanks to you and your team here at Talgrace. It was extremely well done and executed. We just had the drawing last week. Mm-hmm. We sold 2,500 tickets, sold it out early, $100 a piece. That's $250,000 of inflow to us. We spent about $20,000 on marketing and Facebook and those kinds of things to push. Went all over the country. And so we've got $230,000 of new money here. Guess what? That's going to support over 200 more kids in the fall. Just one event.
One event.
200 more kids. Mm-hmm. So we're super excited about it and thankful to everybody that participated.
And again, thank you so much if you did participate, because you're really changing the future of our community. Dave, our hats are off to you and everyone at St. Vincent de Paul for your heroic work and the real differences you guys are making in people's lives. Thank you so much for standing up and doing this very important and really necessary work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for being here today as well.
It's just an honor to be here. And thanks, Rich.
Yeah, Dave, you're the best, and I love the work you're doing. I can't wait to see the continued success of St. Vincent de Paul. It's going to take off again.
Well, God bless you guys.
God bless.
So, Rich, at the Catholic Education Foundation?
The answer is yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for podcast number 19. We would love for you to join us in the future. We're going to have more exciting guests. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you soon.